Hello everyone, this is Vi, checking out Godfist demo. This is going to be a part 2 video. The developer did some kind of an update. Don't know what was changed, but we're just going to try this out real quick. I was mostly curious about what might be different, and might not play it for quite as long, but just thought I'd give a little more feedback on whatever I can see here in the recent update. So let me go ahead and make sure that we have the overlay out of here. I'm sorry about all the traffic noise and stuff. Again, this is not an ideal recording situation in the new place here. I think he probably... Oh. We still don't have options in the gameplay menu here, but I think he mentioned doing something with... Oh. Okay. So this is now locked to 1 of 10 values. Okay, so most games have a sort of a higher resolution that you can set sensitivity to. I don't know like what would be standard. Like I don't know if it has to be like 100 or something, but I feel like this is not going to be enough for everyone probably. I do like having like a limited number of discrete values, like it's not going into like weird decimals and stuff, but that's just my immediate impression of seeing that. Nevertheless, let's see what happens. Alright, it's still a little too high for me, so I gotta go back out here, back into the settings. I had to like click over here, I think, before it would... Like I had to click more than once, so I think there was something where like I had to click first and then the mouse was gonna work or something. Something like that, if that makes any sense. Oh yeah, this feels more like what I would expect, I guess. Okay, maybe a smidge high for me, but again, there's not that much resolution to that setting there, so I think this is probably enough. I'm just real quick, I'm gonna go ahead and click on exit, and yeah, so you see how my mouse is not, there's no highlight from mousing over these right now, but if I click once, now it's doing it, so now I can interact with this. There's like a little bit of a bug there where the mouse isn't immediately working in this menu after exiting out of the gameplay there. Alright, so I don't know what they changed. It feels like the punching is kind of working the same way in terms of like the hit stop effect and everything is still kind of, it feels janky to me, but I think I said enough about that in the last video. I'm not going to repeat myself, but yeah, that's something I wish was different. Honestly, if I were you, I would start with just getting rid of that hit stop altogether. I mean, there's other ways you can implement that as well. That would probably work better in my opinion, but even if you just removed that, I think the game would feel better, to be honest. It would just flow a little bit better in terms of just punching when you want to punch. You know, you click the button and it punches instead of right now where it kind of may or may not. But I said I wasn't going to talk about that, so menu stats level up. I didn't realize there was a level up thing in here, so I don't know if that was something I would have encountered in my last playtest there or not. Quite a bit of inertia on your movement I'm now noticing in terms of picking up speed from a stop. Funny how you can punch while climbing like that. So there's this thing over here. Alright, well, here's the dudes. Oh. What? Okay. I think that's quite different. I don't remember them just falling down from from one punch like that. There is still that like huge disconnect between like you punch and it, there's that stall, and then they fly back. It just feels really janky. My guess is that that was done. I mean, it has to be done intentionally, right? My guess is that that was trying to be like a dramatic effect, like a super long hit stop kind of thing, and then they go flying, like you know, you might see in some anime kind of thing or something. But it doesn't feel like that at all to me in terms of how this is executed here. It just feels like very disconnected. So I might guess that, I mean, oh, wait, what hit me? Something hit me, right? That did not look like it was attached to an attack of one of theirs. Like, I saw a guy like doing an attack immediately after I went flying, but that was pretty weird. So at one point, this is, yeah, so sometimes you punch them, I guess it's just the right time, like when they're starting an attack or something, and they still fly back, but they don't fall down. They kind of continue their attack. I don't know if that's a bug. It just seems like it's so rare. I didn't know they could bounce off each other like that. That was kind of goofy. Ooh, went really far. But yeah, so there's obviously different types of enemies, so presumably they're not all going to fall over after just one hit, right? Okay, so that guy took two. These ones are different color, I guess. Oh, I guess they can like hit each other. I don't know if that did any damage to the enemy there, but yeah, so the enemies, that I'd like to see some different silhouettes and stuff so that you can kind of differentiate between the enemies better, because there's not really much of that going on. Like even this guy that very obviously is different because he has a gun, it's just like completely different. Looks almost identical, so I don't know, maybe the developer has some plans for different looks or something. I mean, there's a little bit of a visual difference there, so I don't know if that's just what the developer decided to go with here, but yeah, I think different silhouettes would make a huge difference in terms of being able to visually differentiate between enemies. Oh, now that I think about it, maybe the color, maybe they glow more when they've taken more damage or something like that. I never really thought about that before, because it does seem like I don't really have an idea of like, oh, like shot over that way. I don't know if it like bounced off of like the boundary of the world or something. What is that? But yeah, I was thinking about like, it didn't seem like there's a clear way to tell like what state they were in terms of damage, but I'm thinking maybe there's like that glowing effect to their body or something. It's supposed to be for that. Maybe not the most intuitive thing, but it's better than nothing, right? Sword cleave. Summons a sword from your right hand that cleaves through multiple enemies. Sure, okay. So again, I didn't use any of these abilities, but I didn't feel like I needed to. It was pretty straightforward. You just keep punching and moving out of the way. I do kind of wonder why this is here. Like what? I guess it's just scenery. But it just seems strange to have like a gigantic wooden crate. Maybe that's a placeholder. I mean, it was mentioned that there's placeholder graphics and stuff, so we do have to keep that in mind. But you know, just mentioning what occurs to me. So yeah, these guys are black, I guess. Are they? Do they all start out black before you beat them up? Is that the idea? And then they start glowing more or something? Wow, that was a little bit trippy there. Not liking those particles in the camera like that, but it's not ruining my day or anything. It's so what determines like how far they fly in terms of? See, that's so much massively more of a distance than like the first two times they got launched within those last like 10 seconds. So I don't know, like I don't know if there's something to do with the angle of the mouse. I was kind of wondering that, like if I angle it up a little higher, will they fly further or something? Is that a thing? I don't know. Yeah, so whatever these things are. Again, don't really feel like I need these abilities at the moment. Oh, pushed the wrong button. I guess it's kind of obvious to just lure these guys over and then kick them off. I was hoping to get more than just one of them, but I goofed up there. Alright, and there might be some strats here where you can just hide around a corner like this. It seems like it's pretty effective. Because they, apart from me just goofing that up, they kind of forces them to funnel in one at a time, mostly-ish. Taking damage here, I'm not really focusing that much on what I'm doing. I'm talking more than trying to play my heart out here, but yeah, so that guy took like a lot of hits, it looked like, and he didn't flinch, so that's kind of weird. Okay, so I'm thinking that if you it seems like if you angle the mouse downwards more, that they kind of get launched downwards. I had no idea before that it would matter the angle of the mouse. I tried to I kind of reflexively tried to crouch and then like punch up higher, but crouching isn't a thing in this game apparently, so I just kind of aimed above the head of the enemy there. But yeah, so that's kind of weird. I mean, I don't see what the utility would be of having the y-axis of the mouse determine the arc that they get thrown in. Like, that suggests that you should always just kind of like aim as high as you can, right? Because you just want them to launch further. But I don't see why you would want to require the player to do that as opposed to just punching them and not thinking about it. Just seems kind of unnecessary, so. I mean, if there's some kind of utility in like, okay, you could launch them lower to have some kind of a different effect or something, that would be useful. You know, that would be a bizarre thing to imagine, I suppose, but you could probably come up with something like that, which is not what I'm suggesting, but I'm I'm just saying that if there was some utility, I could understand why you would want to do it that way. But as it is, I don't think that that's benefiting the game. It seems to make it really inconsistent in terms of how far they fly, because I didn't know that was the case before, so that was kind of something I probably made the experience up till now feel a little bit weirder than it should have. In any case, we got a hook shot, pull you towards static objects or pull enemies towards you. Okay, yeah, so this is something that I think I thought was kind of an obvious sort of thing, where this is a game where you're supposed to kind of get launched around. You know, you die by getting launched off of the towers, so if you have like a grappling hook kind of thing, it could certainly save you from dying that way. So yeah, on paper that makes sense. In terms of Well, I'll say this. Something I noticed in my previous play that I neglected to mention. It definitely seems like the times that I died from getting launched off the tower, I had like I really had no idea that it was about to happen, or that I was like in danger of that happening. It just kind of snuck up on me, and then just like out of nowhere, I'm just flying off the tower, and it's like, okay, well, I understand that's the way the game works. That I'm supposed to, you know, if I take enough damage, then I'm gonna get launched off if I get hit again. But I didn't have any sense of like, oh, I'm in danger or something. You know, that there was some idea that I knew that it was imminent. Uh, it was just like always a surprise. So I feel like that's something that could be improved upon for sure. That was interesting. Okay. I thought an enemy was going to come out of that. Uh-oh. Maybe they're supposed to. Maybe there's... Yeah, seems like I might have bugged out a bit and didn't... Oops. Apparently you can go down to a lower level here without dying. But yeah, I'm assuming the game is kind of soft blocked here because it didn't spawn enemies when it's supposed to, and now I can't kill the enemies because there aren't any. But yeah, so I guess... the collision on those wooden parts is a little funny. I think that it's not quite what my brain expects to see. It seems like I kind of fall through the wood a bit, which is maybe not ideal, because you usually want it to, you know, the colliders to kind of match what you see. Yeah. Even though I know that this is just decoration, it's something that could be frustrating to somebody because you don't expect to fall through things or through geometry in games generally. But yeah, so I think that the sort of stun behavior of the enemies was tweaked a bit from last time I played. I'm assuming that's the case. I don't know for sure. And apart from that, I don't know. I mean, maybe the numbers were tweaked a bit in terms of like how long it takes to punch them to death or to launch them off. That might be something else I would guess for something that was changed, but it still feels a little funky. Part of it being because of what I mentioned before about like not realizing that the angle that I'm aiming the mouse is having like a huge effect on how far they're being launched. So it's like there's just basically zero consistency in how they're getting launched away. So I think if you just like remove that and make that very consistent, that'll help the players to kind of wrap their heads around the progression of like damage the enemies, and then they get launched further and further, and then eventually you launch them off. That'll start to make a lot more sense, I think, if you can smooth that out. Yeah, I guess just everything else I've kind of already mentioned, but seems like there's a lot of little things you could do to make everything feel a lot better. Okay. So this actually is new, I think. The "you failed" screen here. So that's cool. So I guess this sort of one interesting side effect of this kind of weird I don't know what to call it. It's like some kind of a hit stop, but the one where the enemies. Okay, that punch didn't affect him at all. That was kind of it didn't feel quite right. But the fact that the enemies don't fly away immediately when you punch them, it means you can punch these guys twice before they actually get launched. Or more than once. Which I don't know if that was like an intentional thing or not. It's just kind of weird that it just now occurred to me that that's a thing that's happening here. Oh, well, I did not see that guy charging up his attack at all. That was kind of weird. I don't know if that was just my fault for not noticing, or if there was something a little janky going on there. But yeah, so just knowing the fact that like if I aim higher that it's going to launch them sooner, that makes it easier to get rid of these guys more quickly, clearly. Smashes the ground, throwing your enemies up in the air. Okay. So when I'm thinking about the utility of throwing enemies in the air, it makes me think that like there could be some kind of a juggle effect going on, but I don't see. I guess practically speaking, it could be sort of a stun, like maybe it stuns the enemies when they get thrown upwards. But you could also, like, if it was practically speaking nothing more than a stun, then you could stun them without throwing them up. So when I think about throwing them up in the air, yeah, I think about some kind of like a juggle effect or something, or like, you know, when they're up in the air, if you punch them, they would go further or something. I'm not really sure that the mechanics that exist in the game would sort of work with that kind of concept or not, but and it doesn't really seem like it would, I guess. So that's interesting to me. So it's one of those things where it seems like it'd be cool on paper, but I'm not sure if it actually makes that much sense in the context of the current execution here. But maybe if I can... Why did that miss? Okay, so yeah, I mean, anytime you're doing these melee attacks in first person, there's going to be that element of... it can be hard to judge the distance there, but it's pretty annoying. Like with that kick, it feels like it's not going as far as it should sometimes. So maybe you can make that like a bit more generous. It might feel a little nicer. Oh. Okay. All right, so I did the ground. What have they called it before? Wasn't really what I was expecting, because it did kind of explicitly say it was launching them up in the air, but they like hardly went up in the air at all. But they did get stunned, so I guess it was kind of like what I was saying, where it's just sort of practically speaking, it's a stun effect. It just when it like very explicitly describes it as launching them up in the air, that makes me think of other things, you know. It does seem like there could be some element of like trying to keep the enemies in a stun state by like you know, quickly changing your targets between, you know, punching one then quickly punching the other one, and rather than focusing on one at a time, which is a pretty valid way to approach group fights. in games generally. So one thing that occurs to me, something that's a little annoying, and it just happens in a variety of games, I think. But oh, okay, when you've got these situations where you're hitting an enemy and it causes them to become stunned, but if they don't become stunned when they're in the middle of their own attack animation, that can be kind of annoying sometimes, because it's sometimes pretty frequently, I think, you end up in these situations where you hit the enemy and you think that they're going to be stunned, but then they aren't, because they sort of unexpectedly ended up in their attack animation, and you might get hit or whatever. It's usually something of like a little edge case where maybe you just started your attack just a moment after they started theirs, and that kind of thing, and then it's like, oh, well, I didn't really expect that, and I didn't see it coming, and you didn't get what you expected to happen. That could be a little bit annoying, but it's also kind of like, it's one of those things where it doesn't necessarily seem like there's a clear way around that. But one thing I think I've seen in some games is that they have like a little audio cue. So when you're punching a guy, it makes a sound when you hit them, obviously, and then maybe when they're kind of tanking the hits, because they're in like this unstunnable state or whatever, it might have like a different audio cue when you're hitting them. That's something you could consider experimenting with, because that would give the player a little more information about what they're doing. Like when you're punching the hell out of a guy and they're just not reacting to it at all, it can be kind of annoying. So if you give like a little bit of a different audio cue, then it's like, oh, well, something specific is happening that I need to pay attention to, and you can also think about I don't know what the answer to this question would be, but a question you or players might ask would be like, in this state where they're not reacting to me punching them, should they actually like accumulate damage or not? And that's not, there's no single answer to that question. It could be yes or no, but that's just something that occurred to me. So in any case, this takes a while. Oh crap, okay. Well, I don't know what I was expecting, but I was spamming the button, and then I didn't I didn't realize until after I clicked out of it that I didn't see what it was actually giving me, so that was kind of stupid. So we got whatever this is. Oh, I was like, it looked like it stayed in my hand, but so yeah, obviously there aren't a lot of sounds in the game yet, which I mentioned in the last playtest. But in general, I mean, the sound is like really exceptional for providing more feedback for the player, but it does seem like just in general having more feedback would be a thing to focus on. Right. But yeah, so far, okay, there's more enemies. I mean, it hasn't really felt challenging in any way. And yeah, I mean, kind of like I said with the last time I played, I didn't really get very far, but it was also like I never felt like I was losing or anything. That's kind of what I was saying before, but I also just, it never necessarily felt that hard. It was just like I kind of randomly took damage at some points. And another thing on that topic is that as I'm just like running around and just randomly punching guys, I'm not necessarily thinking about where I am on the level here. So like if I'm near an edge, this would obviously be a bad place to be if I'm fighting enemies, because if I do get hit, I'm going to get launched off easily. So that's, when you think about it, when you stop and think about it, that's something you should probably be aware of. But I noticed that, like, I'm not necessarily thinking about that very much, and it's sort of something maybe disadvantageous about the first person perspective. But pain, I'm at 185. There's some money. But yeah, I haven't really seen anything that really feels like it's challenging as much as just like I did take some random damage here and there, just kind of clumsily, you know. I didn't know that these guys could jump like that, so that's interesting. Yeah, and they come down kind of on top of your head, which is like you can't see them falling on you unless you actually move the mouse up, so that's interesting, especially if they are, like, if I'm not looking at them, maybe I don't know that they're there, then it could be frustrating to get whacked by one of these guys from out of nowhere if they're just not on the screen, you know what I mean? Just because I'm facing away. But yeah, so really good audio cues will definitely help with that. That was weird. Sometimes I lose them because I like kind of go through them after punching them or something. I don't know what that guy's doing right there. He's like bugged out. Oops. So yeah, it seems like there's a moment where they, like when they're flying or something, that they kind of lose collision, and then you can kind of walk through them, which occasionally seems to be disorienting. Like if I'm just holding W or something and like punching the hell out of the guy, and then suddenly it just kind of walk through them, it's like, whoa, what's going on? Right, yeah, I wish that would go a little faster, because it feels like it's waiting for me to do something to make it stop rolling, if you know what I mean. Alright, so we got hook shot again. I was looking down. Seems like these guys can start attacking before those... Oh my gosh, that's a big explosion. Before the this glowy effect kind of disappears. I might want to make that just disappear slightly sooner and just make them wait longer or something. Right, that guy's doing this bugged out state again. Oh my god, that was... Okay. I did not see that thing at my feet. I mean, I noticed it after it blew me up, but yeah, so having a lot more audio cues is going to help a lot with that kind of stuff, because you have to constantly worry about the general sort of awareness around you, because you're doing this sort of the combination of the first person perspective and having enemies just in all directions. And then once you start adding particularly these kinds of attacks that just kind of fly at you and either land on top of you or just like explode next to you in like a big area of effect and stuff like this, your sort of spatial awareness becomes extremely important, because that's the only way you can survive, is if you're just aware of all these different factors that are immediately threatening your existence by requiring you to move into particular positions and stuff. So definitely the most powerful thing to enable that is going to be the audio, I think. So yeah, I would definitely give plenty of attention to that. Apart from that, I think I've probably said enough, probably between the two videos. But yeah, as of right now, it doesn't, to me, it doesn't really, it's one of those situations where it doesn't really feel hard, even though I'm still, like, I'm obviously still losing eventually. And I'm sure there's probably, you know, more difficulty that ramps up as you go further. But generally, I think it's sort of a sign of something that can be improved when you have this situation where the game doesn't feel hard, but you're still losing, because that's usually because you're kind of, how do you say it? It's like you're dying to things that you don't feel like you are kind of engaging with in a gamey kind of way. It sort of feels almost unfair in a way, like stuff that you just don't notice, or just like maybe the game wasn't expressing to the player clearly enough, or you know, just weird stuff like that. So far as I've played it, it just seems like pretty straightforward. You just sort of move to avoid stuff kind of constantly, and then you punch them, and you know, there's nothing wrong with that, but it doesn't feel like it's really what's the word? I don't feel particularly challenged to do anything specifically. And the fact that we don't have any kind of dodge mechanics or anything means there's no like timing element or anything like that, which is a good example of, you know, the kinds of things that'll make the player feel more challenged. So maybe you might consider, you know, maybe you don't want to add dodges and stuff, and that's fine, but maybe you could have more timing based things in terms of like you could punch stuff, like maybe there's certain attacks that you could punch at a certain time. Like maybe, I don't know if it's possible to punch the projectiles. I don't think I tried that enough properly. But maybe you could like punch the projectiles, you know, punch them out of the air, or like maybe there's certain moments when enemies are attacking you that you could punch them and it would do like sort of a bonus effect, like it would knock them down or something. Different things like that could add in some timing elements that would make it feel a little more skillful, rather than, like I said, at the moment it basically just feels like you're just kind of moving around and then you're punching, and then you're moving around and you're punching, and basically all of the skill element is just moving into a place that you're not getting hurt with your WASD. So I think you could incorporate a few things. I do, like I said in the last video, I like the idea of using the block more, but there's like a combination of it's not technically required, and it's also you're sort of dissuaded from using it because it runs out when you do. So you know, it's still cool, but I do wish I could kind of use it more, and it was kind of maybe made more necessary at the same time, so that I could incorporate that into more of the gameplay and stuff. So in any case, I hope you found this useful. Let me know if you have any questions, and I'll see you in the next video. Oh, if I can end this video. There we go.